Now, if the member wishes to exercise his right of reply, I call to your level.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. Kia ora tātou katoa e wama. Tātou ngā memo te whare pārema te tēnei pō. I te tuatahi ka mihi rā ki tēnā mo te āhuatango ngā kōrero, ko kōrero hia i te roanga o ngā whāwiki pēr, ko ipa. E pai nā kōrero ahakoa, kai reira tonu etahi paku rerekētanga, e pai tonu ko te menue ki a kōrero hia ngā take, noere me hoki au ki aua kōrero rā mo te wā poto. So thanks firstly to all members who have contributed tonight, not as if I agree with all of the statements, but that's fine, that's the way it goes. But I'm pleased to reflect firstly very quickly on some of the statements made. Firstly to Michael Woodhouse, who obviously referred to the relationship accord that Māori Party has with the National Party. This bill has been on the agenda for some time, and so we're happy that through our relationship accord it comes to the House and hopefully we'll be able to pass its first reading. The second thing referring then to Ruth Dyson, who talked about acknowledging, I suppose, that the issue about poker machines and gambling at that level is very much an issue, and so that's well known. It's been part of very much the debates that at least the statements that I made in opening the debate. Todd McClay talked about surveying his own people and our own people in Rotorua and accepting that there is a desire on the part of many to have this particular debate because it does open up a wide-ranging views with respect to a number of issues, and while the bill is very much looking at harm reduction through poker machines, the connotations of and the wording that has been picked up by members tonight are obviously far-reaching. I acknowledge my colleague Denise Roach, and in particular statements about how some of these machines are placed only in certain communities and not others, that there is an element of support and there is technology, I'm told, around the player tracking and pre-commit cards, so that's helpful to know, and also around the issues that she raised around 80% of the money going back to the community, which was also acknowledged by the Honourable Winston Peters, and the effects in terms of the racing. The comments by Mr Peters around racing, I suppose, are understandable, bearing in mind that he's a former Minister of Racing, so I'd expect that he does raise some of those issues. And the other point that was raised by Denise Roach was about the issue of some of the Pokey Trust possibly being involved in some fraudulent activities. I do want to reflect on one statement that Mr Peters made, and that's with respect to the internet gambling, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, that the issue of internet gambling has certainly come to the fore, and we've got to remember, however, that this bill was drafted up some 2.5 years ago, and the progress with respect to internet gambling has really taken off, I would suggest, over the last 2 years, because I didn't hear about it when we were even drafting up this bill, so I acknowledge that's an issue that hopefully will be raised through the Select Committee process. Mr Mallard talked about the big players, and I can't give too much of a response to that. Suffice to say that I expect that through the Select Committee process, again, people will raise some of those issues. So not too much else to add other than to thank all those for their contribution. I can say, Mr Speaker, that I've had a number of lobby groups come to me with respect to their positions, through from the racing, through to the big trusts, through the smaller trusts, and generally the feedback has been positive, strangely enough. While they have a particular view about this bill, the views have been wide-ranging, and I might say that there have been offers to provide some input into the developing of the bill, because I'm fairly clear that it doesn't solve every problem, but there is a way forward here that might be where it might be possible to deal with some of the issues that have been discussed either behind closed doors by way of some of the behaviour of some of the trusts. The transparency of some of the trusts has been certainly an issue that has been raised, and about the notions of, for example, the involvement of the racing industry and money going off to the racing industry. So, from a Māori Party perspective, we're really pleased that we've hit tonight. I'm hoping that the bill is supported by across the House, as it seems like the indications are. I'm sure that we can find a way forward, and I appreciate also my discussion that I've had with the Minister Chris Tremaine around working together following the Select Committee process to look at trying to find some compromises, deal with the issues that have been raised through the Select Committee process, and hopefully come out the end of it before the end of second reading with a bill that matches up and deals with many of the issues raised not only tonight but by simply having them as a part of the bill. So with that regard, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House, looking forward to the support of the whole House, and look forward also to hearing the debate through the Select Committee process. Nō reira, ka nui te mihi ki tēnā o tātou, nā kai kōrero, o tira tātou I whakaputa kōrero I te pōnei, me te tūmanaku ia ka eke ki te taumate wawata tiana, I roto I ngā marama kai mui te aroro. And also finally, just to say thank you to all of those who have lobbied me because
sorry to interrupt the member.
From there.
Sorry to interrupt, member.
Point of order.
Point of order. The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the leave of the House for this vote to be deferred until the next Members' Day and to be set down as an order of the day on that day in order for there to be a considered ruling on whether this is a conscience vote or not.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection?
Yes, there is.
There is objection. Point of order. The
Speaker,
right
there is
honourable
the
Winston
motion that I sought before, when I sought leave for this because of the position that we have taken over a long, long time on this issue, for it to be a conscience vote.
No. Michael Woodhouse.
He can't speak to a leave motion on my request.
No, you brought up a point of order, and the member is responding. I've invited the member to respond to your point of order. Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, while it's not very common, it is not unusual for members within a party to vote with their consciences and split their votes. And it happened quite a number of times in the 49th Parliament by members of the ACT Party. And I do suggest to the New Zealand First Party, as a way through this impasse, if they are prepared to vote with their consciences, and I presume their leader is well aware, having canvassed those views in advance of the debate, that they are absolutely free to split their vote and cast accordingly.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, the member's absolutely right. Other than the application of Standing Order 141, where there is a requirement for the Speaker to make a ruling as to whether an issue is a conscience vote or not. And Mr. Speaker, I am unaware of, and trying to do some rapid research, of contested votes on gambling issues, and there have been a lot of votes on gambling issues that have not been contested because the House has been unanimous on them, but I'm unaware of contested votes on gambling issues that have not been treated that way. And that for pretty obvious reasons, Mr. Speaker, and that is that members do have points of view which go to their conscience rather than ideological views, which were what divided ACT and the member referred to before.
To that point?
I'll call Michael Woodhouse.
I just want to briefly point out, I may have misheard you, but I am quite sure you have made a considered ruling under Standing Order 141.
I have. And look, the matter is at an end. However, in dealing with the Honourable Winston Peters, Right Honourable Winston Peters, that if his party wishes to have a split vote, I refer him to, well, I've actually ruled, and you sought leave, and that leave was denied. So at this stage, the way forward, if there is a way forward, is if the member wishes, under Standing Order 141B, a party's votes may be cast for the ayes or the noes, or recorded as an abstention, and a party may cast some of its votes in some of the categories and some other or others, and this is a split party vote. So if the member wishes to have a split vote, or any member wishes to have a split vote, that can be accommodated. Right Honourable Winston.
Mr. Speaker, with respect to the submission Mr. Woodhouse made, and the one which may have found favour with you, this is not a matter of whether we disagree on a policy. This is a different matter to do with party conscience vote. You usually find them on issues like this and alcohol, which have been the two long-standing. Well, the last 6 stints, the particular ones that the Parliament has tended to focus on, they are not to be likened to the dispute over ideology, such as the ACT one that Mr. Woodhouse raised. So with respect, there's also, if you look at 141, a personal vote being held out following a party vote. But we don't want to get up and say there's 7-4 here and 8 against, and that those people who happen to be against do not have their names recorded demonstrating their conscience. There's something that is being diminished here if you find in favour of that sort of ruling.
The split vote provision in this Parliament now is that those who vote for and against in a split vote, their names are recorded. So that is a very clear provision, which is... Well, you said that was... No, I'm a fact. And this is... The provision now is quite clear that under a split vote, our members are recorded for and against, and the public knows which way they voted. So we now move to the vote, and the vote. Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Can you ask me how you get past these words with respect to your consideration? Where it reads at 141, and the Speaker considers that the decision on the party vote is so close that a personal vote may make a material difference to the result. That's the only matter that you've got to consider yourself with. That there is right in the standing orders, rather than ruling out before we start. That's my point.
Well, we haven't got to that point yet because I haven't put the vote. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think you mean Trevor Mallard, don't you?
Sorry.
And I'm an ordinary honourable, I think.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to... I heard your ruling before as to process.
Yes.
What I did not hear is you rule that gambling is not a conscience issue. So my view is that the precedent has always been in this House where there is division on a gambling issue, on a liquor issue, on a sex issue, and there's another one as well, I can't remember what it is. It's sins anyway. So that group of issues, they are conscience issues. That's what 138 refers to. And sir, I think I'm pleading with you not to upset the precedent of this Parliament and the rights of members to have conscience votes. You would effectively, you ruled as to the current Speaker's practice as far as dealing with these matters in the Development of the Business Committee, and all of us think that's a good thing. You know, we think it is, you know, if members do take it to the Business Committee and there's a proper discussion, there's notice, and what came out of this was when I said to the member, our whip, that I've seen a party vote on a notice on a matter of shop trading. That's another one, which came out of Sunday trading and Easter trading. That's the one I was trying to think of. It's not quite sins, but some people would regard it as a sin to trade on Easter Sunday. But Mr. Speaker, the point that I'm making is that this has always been a conscience issue. I accept that a process which is being developed is a good process, but my plea to you is that you do not let a lack of a non-standing order process override the standing orders of the House.
No, I'm going to deal with this. The member asked whether I had ruled or not on whether this was a conscience vote, and I haven't ruled in that way. I haven't actually mentioned that at all. What I've been guided by, very much, is by Standing Order 139, where the Speaker considers that the subject of vote is to be treated as a constant issue, the Speaker will permit a personal vote to be held instead of a party vote. So that's one of the considerations I've taken into account. Now, while it may have been a convention, as the member says that gambling and other matters have in the past been treated as conscience votes, I haven't determined in my deliberations that in fact this is to be treated as a conscience vote, and so I am guided very much by 139, and of course I've mentioned that if a party wishes to split their vote, they can do so under 141B. Now, the member sought leave for this to be postponed. It's very clear that we can't postpone it because leave was not granted. And from here on in, I'm required now to put the vote.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, this Standing Order 139 actually doesn't leave you an option. if a matter is a conscience vote, you must permit a personal vote to be held and not a party vote. It is not a. It is not. There is not an option. It is not something for you, Mr. Speaker, to choose to do. If it is a conscience vote, then the procedures for split votes in 140 do not apply, because they are split votes, Mr. Speaker. They are procedures for party votes and not for personal votes. I know that my colleague Charles Chevelle has been studying this question as well as Mr. Hipkins, but I put it to you, Mr. Speaker, that you do not have an option on this. If it is a conscience issue, you cannot choose to have a party vote on it. And my submission to you, Mr. Speaker, is this has always been a conscience issue where there is a division, and I accept there have been lots of times when there's not been a division, and therefore it doesn't apply. But this is a conscience issue. You can't get gambling type stuff. You can't get more of a conscience issue, in my opinion. But I know my colleagues have views as well.
Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to make a very brief contribution to this discussion, because I've had the chance to have a read of some of the relevant sections of McGee while this interchange has been taking place. And I think it's important, one of the distinctions